Glad to have you back. If you're just joining us, you're watching the conversation right here on Lagos Television. Now, the Nigeria's economic conversation is undergoing a critical shift with increasing volatility in the global oil market, as well as the mounting pressure on FX, that means the foreign exchange earnings. The urgency to diversify Nigeria's economy has been more compelling, rather. Now, the non-oil sector, talking about agriculture, solid mineral services, the creative economy and technology, holds vast, largely untapped potential to drive inclusive growth, job creation, and sustainable development. Now, this morning, we would like to look at how to drive the business opportunity in the, or perhaps put it, exploring the business opportunity in the non-oil sector of our economy. And with me this morning to look at this or perhaps dissect this conversation is the Director General of the Nigerian Association of Chamber of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture. We have with us this morning Mr. Olusola Obadimu. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning.
Good morning.
So I guess where to start the conversation is perhaps Nigeria has spoken about economic diversification for a very long time. I remember since when I started covering, even as a young reporter during President Olusegun Obasanjo's time, he has talked, I was that young, very young. I have heard about diversifying our economy, and what came to mind then was the cassava flow during President Olusegun Obasanjo. And I remembered I was a young reporter in Radio Nigeria way back 2005, 2004, and he was carrying bread and everything's about let's go back to farm and all that. So the question is, what has changed today that makes non-oil sector development not just desirable, but inevitable?
Thank you very much. You know, we have failed to deepen our economy, and that's the summary of everything. Since the colonial days, when the oil was discovered at Olusola in the 50s, we started exporting crude. And there were, thoughts around late 70s. We used to have these 5-year development plans, which eventually terminated around 1985. I think we discontinued when General IBB took power. And during the 70s, there was a motivation, for instance, to go into some critical areas, namely to develop the petrochemical industry, to develop the steel industry, to give us an industrial future. That was the focus. But as it is, our aspirations in the steel sector failed with Ajaokuta monumentally, to say the least. And our aspirations within the petrochemicals sector also got stunted for whatever reasons. I think our non-committal nature because really, when people say that we were in the same economic bracket with the likes of Malaysia,
Indonesia,
Taiwan, whatever, they were correct. But there was an intentional determination to have a future, a bright economic future, a more industrial future. And that's, 20 years ago, we used to laugh at Chinese and Taiwanese products, that they were inferior. But now, that's the place that you have to go now if you want to trade global. So that is the issue. We have failed. It's not just Nigeria. I think a significant part of the Black Africa got affected by this issue of lack of determination to move on and blend with the world industrial-wise and technology-wise. So we are in the same situation, just like you pointed out. Not much has changed in the last 2 or 3 decades, and disappointingly so. You name critical areas that we could have, used as basis to propel ourselves. I mean, agree, we don't have issues with our climate. We don't have any natural disasters besetting us. You mentioned solid minerals. That's you mentioned ICT technology. You mentioned green economy.
Yeah.
The opportunities still exist in those sectors, but we fail to harness them. Now, if I were to deepen the conversation a bit, what does it take to take agric forward? What does it take to take agri forward? Now, there are some clear gaps. Energy continues to be a factor. Now, in 2026, we are in 2026, there is no reason to eat oranges 6 months in a year, bananas 6 months in a year.
It can be all year round.
It can be all year round. Well, you know, so we are still living in the pre-stone age. We are still living in the Garden of Eden.
What baffles me a little bit is hardly will you find any administration, any government, both at the subnational or at the national, the first thing they talk about is all these plans, and whether it's in their manifesto as to how they want to grow the non-oil sector and how they intend to. In fact, if you ask any one of them now, they'll tell you billions and billions of naira or dollars, as the case may be, has been sunk into the non-oil sector to revamp, or the word, diversify the economy. So the question is, why hasn't it translated to something more tangible? Because perhaps, thank God to the private refinery that has sprung up. We do not, across the value chain of the oil and gas sector, we are just a net exporter. Nothing more, nothing less of crude oil. Nothing across that value chain. So why hasn't it changed? If they've done that constantly, we have the MTEF, the medium-term expenditure framework. We've got all this and very laudable visions and goals. Why hasn't it translated to something tangible? At least, let's say, if it is for the next 10 years, agriculture we'll focus on. Let's just do it and be the next exporter.
Yeah, that's the same thing that I'm talking about. What does it take to move forward? Agriculture, for instance. If you stabilize power, you know, because agric is not just farming. We can't localize it to farming. Processing is a big part of it. Logistics is a big part of it. Now, if you are not developing, if you are not making your power sufficient, if your roads continue to be bad or get worse, you can't extract the gains of agriculture fully. It's impossible. If you drive, South Africa is still within Africa. If you drive between Joburg to Sun City, I think it's about 3 hours drive, left and right, you see farms, left and right. Not just crop farms. You see animal husbandry being practiced. Our own Lagos-Ibadan road is full of churches. I'm not saying churches are not good, but what I'm saying is, you know, for you to extract fully the gains of agriculture, you must have reliable power, you must have good roads, your infrastructure must be better. Then you mentioned mining. What stops us from, formalizing that sector, that solid mineral sector? We have illegal mining going on in all parts of Nigeria. What stops us? And you know, one critical thing that we fail to realize is, if you formalize that sector, giving room for people to legally extract, process, or beneficiate the mineral resources here, you start to employ more people. Government stands to gain more money through taxes. But the political will, I'm sorry, seems to be lacking. And that is a huge sector that we are not concentrating on. There are countries all over the world that wish they have any mineral resource at all.
Yeah.
They don't. But they've moved on. They've developed nevertheless. Now we are taking all these things for granted. And we have a lot of our youth that are still unemployed. We are not building that future for them. Are we going to export all our youth to Western Europe?
Okay, I need to touch on, coincidentally, the security matter in Kwara State took a chunk of our time.
It's a very important thing. Yeah.
Because I'm sure those people also farm, so we've got the issue of insecurity. People can't go to farm.
Exactly.
That's another challenge in itself. But let's look at the MSME and, of course, industrial growth, as well as the manufacturing sector. Any politician will tell you about the need to ensure that we are productive. Of course, we're not productive as it is. But of course, we do know how important medium-scale enterprises is to Nigeria, because they employ globally. They employ the largest in Nigeria. And of course, they've been the base of our development, our GDP in the past couple of years, especially since we did the rebasing with the government of Jonathan.
Yeah.
how, I don't want to bring NACCIMA in yet. It's the latter part of my question.
Okay.
How come we've not, of course, we are having serious issues of formalizing because it's called the informal sector. How do we bring them in to make them formal? How to engender growth that is organic and it's also sustainable?
I think it's the same factors, really. What are they asking for? They're asking for better infrastructure. I was at the Technology Incubation Center at Agege near Penn Cinema about 2 or 3 days ago. And all the small businesses operating there were running on generators. Despite that, it's supposed to be as an SME area, created by government to help them, run their business without, all of them were running on generators. It's not feasible. And then they all face challenges of bad roads and insecurity, just like you mentioned. Because I was at the facility of a lady who is into cosmetics manufacturing, and she was saying that, well, she has some level of export readiness products that they accept, even up till Niger, Benin, Lome, Togo, and so on. But if she has to transport her things to the north, she gets a lot worried until somebody calls her that the goods were already there. She's fearful, and I don't want to even go near cost of finance yet, because that's another argument entirely. But if infrastructure is stable, if the roads are good, if security is good, they can manage, because these people have a way of bonding to, maybe through cooperative system, they can get cheaper loans rather than going to banks, so they could source for a loan alternatively. But how do you ensure your security? How do you individually deal with the security situation of the country? It's impossible. It's not within your power. How do you fix roads individually or as a small business person? It's difficult.
But how can you now grow the economy when because if you have someone perhaps watching us now and listens to you, the person will just say, there's no need to even start business because of all this factor, from infrastructure to even, if you go to any bank now, the interest rate is almost 30%. Over 30. And you have, like, the inflation is also there as well. You have these multi-pronged, hydra-headed challenges facing you. Might just raise your hands and say, there's no need to do business in this country.
Unfortunately, some people are passionate about production, incidentally. Despite all the odds, they've stayed in there, but some others are pulling out. But we have to look at the net situation. If more people are pulling out than those that are staying or joining in, then it becomes a problem. Apapa used to be an industrial setting area. Apapa,
Hub, yeah.
I think 3 years ago, I visited Dogan Sugar, because we have these corporate members that we visit once in a while. And the road to that factory, believe you and me, was impassable. They moved away from the place now to along the Lagos-Ibadan road. We couldn't get there with our vehicle. We had to, come down from the vehicle and walk to the factory. These are the problems and despite that they pay taxes, a lot of responsibilities still rest on them. Now, looking at the bank, you mentioned the bank. What the banks do is difficult for them, between me and you, to lend to anybody below the inflation rate. Otherwise, you are losing money. I don't know whether you get my argument.
I do.
Aha. So we can't really blame banks for that. But, a more productive, friendly economy or government look for alternative ways to support business beyond the commercial banks. That's why we call them commercial. They are not development institutions.
Banks, yes.
They are not. They are commercial. So, so there is a need for maybe special institutions to deal with their cases. But like I said, they can find ways around that. But how do you find ways around electricity and roads and security?
If we talk about electricity, that's another government of page, especially with the federal government trying to clear the debt and also let the state bear some of the burden as well.
Yeah.
So the question is I know the real sector has been they've been crying for a very long time, from policy consistency to how to.
That's another issue entirely. You ban this thing today, and then tomorrow you open the floodgates.
Yes.
That's another issue entirely.
So because we need to get this, we need to get to a point where the real sector, mines, business, trade needs to thrive in this country, because that's the only way we can grow the non-oil sector. So perhaps the question I need to ask is, what are the opportunities available? Because I'm sure it's not all that dark.
No.
So what are the opportunities available that one can explore?
It's not.
Or how can government also help to deal with some of these issues, and so that we can have new entrants into the industry?
It's not all gloomy, like you said, because we continue to be a huge market. We don't know how many we are, but at least we know that we are more than 200 or 250 million. Because outsiders continue to look in, that our market continues to be attractive. I was in Rwanda at a tea factory, and they were telling me that they would have loved to have a factory in Nigeria because of the market, and because Nigerians are showing interest in their products. But they are concerned in the situation, and they are now thinking of starting the factory in Benin, and then be shipping in the goods from Benin. Because one, Benin has a better light situation. There are less issues about security. So we mentioned all that. So now, there is still a huge opportunity
we give Benin
within unfortunately so. There is still a huge opportunity in agriculture, really, no matter what we say. People have to eat. 200 and something million people, they have to eat on a daily basis. Unfortunately, because of the situation, the people in logistics are the ones making the biggest gains in agriculture right now, which shouldn't be so. Because if we are to grow our agricultural capability, we need to encourage those that are currently into farming to start processing their products, for them to make more from it. So we have to give them that productive incentive, so that they don't just do the thing and ship it to the market, and then the guy who comes to pick them up at the farm gate makes the more money. There will always be opportunities in agri forever because of our huge population. And then, of course, I mentioned mining. Let us just formalize that sector. That's all we need to do, and stop East Asians from coming to just fly the thing away.
Maybe I'll just chip in this one here, because I know in Zamfara we talk about illegal mining and how it has become a trade. So if Osun, because I need to mention Osun, I need to formalize that as well. So my final question is, how is NACCIMA positioning itself to support businesses, particularly startups and SMEs, in identifying opportunities and, of course, accessing markets and influencing pro-business policies?
Okay. Because we have this network with other chambers of commerce across the world. We are a member of the International Chamber of Commerce. So we receive inquiries almost on a daily basis on people, particularly when it comes to partnership and alliances. We get a lot of that, and then we let our members know of these opportunities where they can build alliances. There are companies out there who are willing to bring in machinery, form alliances with local companies, and grow their capacity here, so that they don't want to start from the scratch on that basis. So our own mandate is to create alliances, and then to help grow. We have serious relationships with BOI, the Bank of Agriculture, and so on. And they are making funds available, really, to be fair to them. I give credit to BOI. We have something going on with them right now. We are their lending support to our SMEs. We also encourage export. That's a key thing that we are involved in.
Thank God, Goa was also just recently extended.
Maybe for a year, right? That's not much. That's not much. Anyway, at least it has not been halted. Yes. That's significant. Maybe it will be renewed again. Because, we also, on behalf of the federal government, through the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investments, we process certificates of origin for exporters. So we encourage people to go. We have this working relationship also with the Export Promotion
Council.
So we continue to educate people who have products to go into exports so that they can make more money and grow their capacity. So these are the basic roles that we play, and we've been doing that very well. But and then of course our advocacy efforts in conjunction with other private sector bodies like the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. We have this body that we formed called Organized Private Sector of Nigeria. So with us, with MAN, with NECA, with NACCIMA and NACCIMA, we sometimes present common fronts to government on issues to be considered. And we are glad that we are getting a listening ear, but things could definitely be better.
So what should be like your low-hanging fruit, even as we wrap up this conversation, that you think will do something significant to the economy, especially the non-oil sector, before the end of the year?
Let's focus. You mentioned them, the 4 areas: agric, mining, ICT, green economy.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, the Director General of NACCIMA, Mr. Olusola Obadimu. It's a pleasure to have you join us this morning.
You're welcome.
So I believe that for everyone that really wants to get things going, you just have to be bold, courageous, because for you to have the honey, you need to actually play with the bee, or even get between the rocks or the tree, whichever the case may be, because that's the only way we can actually grow the non-oil sector of the Nigeria's economy. We'll take another short break. The Lagos people, they are standing by. They've been coughing seriously to get the conversation going. Looking forward to that as well. We'll take a very short break. The conversation continues right after this.